While the first civil service system, Civil Service Reform 1, as we spoke about earlier, while it sought to replace the spoils system with a merit system and to limit the control of politicians and management over many aspects of the personnel processing system, in 1976, this is not exactly what civil service reform meant. It instead referred to efforts to align the people and practices with the day-to-day needs of the managers in the public arena in order to improve the performance of employees and make the bureaucracy or the employees responsible for or responsible to the leadership in public agencies. And so we see in the 70s another effort to reform civil service, which I'll now move into that is titled Civil Service Reform 2. Under Civil Service Reform 2, there was an emphasis placed on improving the leader, the CEO, the whoever the political leader, improving their control over the personnel functions through what I call unification efforts, and an effort to make sure that the people and the work all became unified with the mission of the organization. And this came about as a result of the U.S. Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, referred to as CSRA. And under the Civil Service Reform Act, the Civil Service Commission was abolished, and instead OPM, or the Office of Personnel Management, was established with a director that reports directly to the president, and then a watchdog function, the Merit Systems Protection Board, MSPB, was also established by virtue of the 78 CSRA. Under this concept, under the new civil service reform system, there was typically a separation between general management and personnel administration that the older system created, that this new system sought to remedy. That it was important under this new reform system that the person in charge be given the necessary ability and authority to make personnel decisions, that the personnel function itself would be integrated into the overall operation of the agency, and that the personnel decisions could be made at the agency level versus having an external personnel department that was really overly focused on policies and rulification and policy for the sake of policies, and adhering to legalistic terminology and requirements, that there would be a way to somehow meld that into the normal everyday operation of an organization, and to provide the CEO with more control over the personnel system. So this Civil Service Reform Act of 78 also created the Senior Executive Service to support senior career administrators and high-level executives. So be familiar then with the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, what it intended, what it offered, the requirements of that act, and how it affected the civil service in the 70s. If you notice the dates, this Reform Act uh, was ratified in 1978, and just 2 years before the end of Jimmy Carter's term as president. And so he had very little time to work on enacting this reform. He was replaced as president by Ronald Reagan, and these reforms essentially hit a roadblock, a complete roadblock during the Reagan era in the United States. And so in a late in the 80s, a National Commission on the Public Service, also known as the Volcker Commission, was formed and created a report. The Volcker Commission, in fact, reported problems in three basic areas: higher civil service, recruitment and retention, and performance and productivity. And again, I'll ask you to take a closer look at your text and read and review the text in your book versus having me go back and talk about something that you should be familiar with from reading yourself. So just very briefly, higher civil service, recruitment and retention, and performance and productivity is how I would characterize these three problem areas. So holding managers accountable for results was one critical area that managers needed to be accountable for results or outcome focus versus output focus, or going by the book, counting widgets, counting activities. That there was a desire to move management accountability to a results orientation versus a process orientation. There was a movement to decentralize and to deregulate and to integrate the personnel function into planning and policy making activities, to treat employee training and development as an investment. And in most agencies today, I would say that when there are budget issues or budget problems, that quite often employee training and development gets put on the back burner, gets put on hold, and is sacrificed in order to save money, when this idea or that idea is completely inconsistent with the General Accounting Office principles here established in 1995 as an offshoot of the Volcker Commission's report in 1989. I think one of the most telling statements here that I really appreciate in this GAO principles from 1995 is to value people as assets to be developed and encouraged, as opposed to costs that should be minimized. I think, just from a personal perspective, if we in the public service will hire employees and look at them as assets, and look at what we invest in employees as investing in an asset that will give us a return on our investment, then we will look at training and development much differently. And I think we'll also start to experience much lower attrition rates within our public organizations. And so we should, as the GAO principles suggest, value people as assets that are to be developed and encouraged, as opposed to costs that should be minimized or completely avoided. And again, these are General Accounting Office principles of 1995. Thus, we move forward to continuing public challenges, and we have several public challenges that continue to be, in fact, be challenges. Those challenges include the changing political and social, economic, and technological environments. Even in 2015, These are changes or challenges. These changes in the political, social, economic, and technological environment includes the changing workforce demographics. The workforce in the U.S. It's estimated over the last 10 years, most of the new entrants into the workforce are non-white male. Workforces now appear to be and tend to be more gender diverse, more racial and ethnic diverse. And so with the changing of the characteristics and the makeup of the workplaces, I mean, there is even some age diversity in workplaces now. So there may be 4 different generations of employees working in workplaces now: the Gen Xers, the millennials, the baby boomers, and etc. And so you have multiple different age diverse people working in workforces today. And as baby boomers start to retire and go off the scene, millennials now are coming at the front end and are now either have or have recently or about to overtake the baby boomers as the largest segment of workers in the workforce. So there is a changing demography in workforces, but there is also a requirement as we become more diverse, more culturally diverse, more gender diverse. As we see the demographics change, there's a need to implement family-friendly policies. The different generations within the workforces approach families differently. And today it is essential that policies are family friendly, that there's a focus on workforce diversity, especially age, gender, racial, and ethnic diversity. Now, back in the 1980s and 90s, many organizations started to talk about workforce diversity programs as if workforce diversity was the in vogue thing to do, the in vogue place to be. And it was as popular back then as it was essential. Today, workforce diversity is no longer just a popular area of teaching and lessons in public opinion. But in fact, if we are going to meet the requirements to serve the public, then that service has to be provided by people who are diverse from all perspectives and all walks of life. They have to be diverse racially, ethnically, gender-wise, age-wise. They have to be. There are not enough homogenous people of any persuasion to fill the needs of the demanding public through assigned jobs in the workplace. But it's going to take everybody that we have in this country, regardless of who they are, what they look like. It's going to take them to fill the jobs, to meet the needs in order to meet the demands of the American public. But we also see in urban areas in particular and an increase in violence. Some of it is workplace violence, some is not. But generally speaking, we're seeing an increase in violence. At the same time, we're seeing some education challenges with the changing demography. You have a difference in the rate at which people graduate from high school. A difference in the rate at which people are actually going to college and graduating from college. There are issues of training that must be attended to. Poverty and health and health care. Discrimination is continuing to be a challenge in the public. Discrimination based on age, based on gender, based on race, despite the American with Disabilities Act. We're seeing issues with discrimination of persons based on their disability or based on their ability. And also issues of privatization as well. Privatization is a challenge. We're seeing more, for example, more and more communities make a decision to hire private police to patrol their communities versus hiring public police or off-duty officers. We're seeing more and more cities at their courts hire security guards to screen court patrons or court visitors or screen visitors in city facilities. So there is a movement towards privatization that also is a continuing, if not a growing public challenge as well, that we really have to pay attention to, be wary of, and to make sure that we're properly positioned for the future on these issues. Now, this completes the end of this particular presentation. This is the second presentation of two. I split them off into two presentations. Please now go back and either review the presentation or review your notes and construct 3 questions. They need to be relevant to the discussion here, at least 3. Please submit them to me by email just to confirm that you really did review this and that you're paying attention. I would also ask that you go back and look at all of the cases that have been identified so far. I didn't cover everything in your chapter, but I'm relying on you to do so. You will be held accountable for everything in your textbook and everything that we explore in this online presentation as well as what we discuss in class. So please go back and make sure you read and review. Take a look at some more of Glenn Stahl's work, and perhaps you'll find it easy to read and easy to understand and enlightening. After all, we want to get through the semester with your understanding of personnel processes and personnel problems at a level where you'll be fully equipped to move into that arena and perform at a very, very high level. So anyway, thank you for viewing this presentation, and I hope you have an enjoyable time. Thank you.